The hallway lights flickered above me as I ran toward OR3, terrified for my husband, the man I thought I still trusted. Still, I froze when a nurse clutched my sleeve and whispered, "Hide. It's a trap." As the lights buzzed louder, the fear in my chest twisted into something sharper. While I edged toward the door window, that same flicker exposed what love had blinded me to. The same harsh glow fell on my husband, awake, smirking, waiting to watch his own wife fall apart. That's when I understood. This wasn't a medical emergency. It was a marriage built to betray me. Before we start, I'd love to hear where you're watching from. If you enjoy the story, please hit like, subscribe, and join our community. It really helps us grow. The spaghetti was still steaming when he said it, the kind of soft curl of steam that usually makes a home feel warm. But that night, it felt like it rose straight into my face and stung. Ellie was kicking her legs under the table, humming her little school song, a smear of tomato sauce on her cheek. Liam barely looked up from his phone, thumb flicking, screen glow reflecting in his glasses, while he forked pasta into his mouth like he was eating on autopilot. Then Ellie said it, bright as a bell. "When I grow up, I want to be like Mommy. I want to work at the hospital, too." Liam snorted, not even bothering to hide it. The sound was sharp, almost wet. "Your mom doesn't work at the hospital anymore, honey," he said, eyes still on whatever text he thought mattered more than dinner. "She does paperwork in her pajamas. Daddy saves lives." The words landed like someone tapping a bruise I hadn't looked at in a long time. I felt my spine straighten without meaning to. "I still do medical documentation and coding," I said, keeping my voice light because Ellie was watching us both like a tennis match. "It's what keeps the hospital paid and safe." He finally looked at me, just long enough to roll his eyes. Yeah, the invisible work." He waved a hand lazily toward the air between us. "The real stuff happens in the OR." Ellie's little face pinched with confusion. "Does Mommy's job not count?" she asked in the small voice that always made me stop whatever I was doing. Before I could reassure her, Liam chuckled. "Your mom retired early." He winked at her like it was a harmless tease. "She couldn't handle the OR anymore." Heat climbed up my neck. I felt it under my skin, prickling. "I didn't retire," I corrected quietly. "I chose to freelance so I could be more present for Ellie." He stabbed a piece of garlic bread, muttering just loud enough for both of us to hear. "Sure, that's what you tell yourself." The clink of cutlery suddenly seemed too loud. The overhead light buzzed faintly, a sound I'd never noticed before. Ellie's legs slowed their swinging, and she drew her fork across her plate in a little line, avoiding our eyes. I swallowed the urge to defend myself harder, because I knew exactly how he'd twist it. Too emotional, too sensitive, too much. I smiled at Ellie instead, brushing the sauce from her cheek, telling her she could be anything she wanted. My voice sounded steady, but inside, something small folded into itself. Liam got up before any of us finished eating, dropping his napkin on the table like an afterthought. "Long day tomorrow," he said, already walking away, phone buzzing again. He didn't kiss Ellie's head. He didn't touch me at all. He just disappeared into the hallway, the sound of his footsteps fading toward the bedroom. Ellie leaned against my arm. "Mommy, I like your job." That nearly did me in. I kissed the top of her hair, breathing in the warm, sweet smell of her shampoo. "Thank you, baby," I whispered. "That means a lot." After she went to sleep, I cleaned the kitchen quietly. The plates felt heavier than usual. Even the water running over my hands felt colder. I tried to shake it off, tried to tell myself it was just another off comment, another night where he wanted to remind me of my place. But when the house finally went still, I slipped into my tiny home office. The lamp cast a soft yellow circle over the cluttered desk. My old OR badge lay in a drawer I rarely opened. My name, my photo, my credentials that he pretended didn't matter anymore. Next to it was the folder with the LLC paperwork for the duplex, the one thing in my life he hadn't managed to turn into a shared asset or a shared story. I traced the raised surface of the badge with my thumb, the plastic cool and familiar. The smell of printer ink and dust filled the small room. "If he thinks I'm this weak," I whispered into the empty space, "what else does he think he can get away with?" Today I know that question was the first quiet alarm bell. I just didn't realize then how loud it would become. Sunday mornings in our house always smelled like burnt coffee and whatever soap Liam used on his scrubs. He stood at the kitchen counter, still damp from his shower, hair curling slightly at the edges, a stack of papers tucked under one arm. The sunlight coming through the blinds cut across the countertop in sharp stripes, landing right on the forms he spread out in front of me. "Just routine updates," he said, sliding them closer. The papers made a soft scraping sound against the granite. "Benefits, malpractice coverage, all the boring stuff. Can you sign? End of the month deadline." I was still in my robe, my own mug of coffee warming my palms. The house felt too quiet. Ellie was at a sleepover, and the silence made every little sound louder. The hum of the refrigerator, the clink of his pen against the counter, the faint slosh of coffee in his cup as he shifted his weight. He flipped to a page with a bright yellow, sticky tab. "Here, spousal acknowledgement." He tapped the line with the pen, the gesture impatient but wrapped in a smile. "Just sign." I skimmed automatically. Old or habits, my eyes catching on words that tightened my throat a little. Beneficiary, power of attorney, medical decision-making, incapacity. The paper felt slick under my fingers, too smooth, like it was trying to glide away from me. "Why is my name listed here?" I asked, keeping my voice even. "And why are some of these boxes blank?" He sighed dramatically, leaning back against the counter, taking a long sip of his coffee like he needed patience for me. "You're overcomplicating it, Nora. The hospital pre-fills most of it. I fixed the rest." "Fixed?" I repeated, scanning the lines again. The air smelled sharply of the antiseptic soap he loved, and it made the moment feel strangely clinical. He reached out, gently brushing my hair off my forehead the way he used to when we first got married. "It's fine. This is normal paperwork. I swear you worked in an OR. You know how much bureaucracy comes with this stuff." I pointed to one sentence, my finger trembling slightly, though I tried to steady it. "This part about incapacity. What does that actually mean?" He laughed. Really laughed. A short, dismissive puff. Then he bent down and kissed my forehead. His lips were warm, but the gesture felt cold. "It means, if I'm unconscious, you get to say yes to them fixing me. That's literally it, Nora." The way he said literally made me feel ridiculous for even asking. Still, something in me hesitated. A small, instinctive tug low in my stomach. I pulled the pen back slightly, and that tiny movement changed his entire posture. He straightened, shoulders tightening, face falling into a wounded disappointment. "If you don't trust me with paperwork," he said quietly, "what does that say about us?" The guilt hit fast and sharp, like someone snapping a rubber band against my wrist. What did it say about us? Why was I making this a thing? Why couldn't I just be easy? Like he wanted. Like I used to be. My cheeks warmed with embarrassment, and I could practically hear the accusation forming. "You're being dramatic again." So I signed. My pen made a soft scratching sound that felt louder than it should have. He smiled, relieved, already stacking the papers neatly, already turning away. I think that bothered me more than anything, the way the tenderness vanished the second he got what he wanted. That night, the house was quiet again. Too quiet. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the digital clock casting a harsh green glow across the room. When it hit 2:07 a.m., my brain suddenly replayed a line from the forms like a voice whispering in my ear. Assessment of spouse's reliability. Reliability. Like I was being evaluated. Like someone else might decide whether I could be trusted. I sat up, heart tapping against my ribs, my throat dry. The room smelled faintly of Liam's cologne from the laundry basket, and it made my skin crawl for reasons I couldn't explain yet. Next time, I thought, pulling the blanket around me, I'm getting copies. I don't care if he sighs. I don't care if he pouts. I want copies of everything. Today I understand that the moment I signed without reading everything was the moment he learned I could be pressured into silence, with just the right combination of affection and doubt. I didn't know it then, but that signature was the first crack in the floor beneath me. The hospital cafeteria always smelled the same: burnt espresso, over-bleached floors, and something fried that never quite matched the menu board. I sat at a tiny table by the window, my coffee cooling fast in the sterile air. The overhead lights buzzed faintly, flickering just enough to irritate me. Liam slid into the chair across from me, dropping his tray with a soft thud. His scrubs were wrinkled at the collar, and I could still smell the sharp bite of surgical soap on his skin. "Sorry," he said, taking a sip of his coffee. "Resident drama." I smiled because that's what I used to do. Make it easy for him. "It's fine. I needed the break." A couple of doctors and an OR nurse drifted over, greeting Liam like he was their unofficial mayor. No one asked if they could sit. They just did. Liam didn't introduce me. He just gestured vaguely in my direction like I was an accessory. They dove into conversation about long surgeries and impossible schedules. I stayed quiet, sipping my lukewarm coffee. "My wife keeps calling during my cases," one surgeon groaned. "I swear she thinks the OR is optional." Liam smirked. "At least my wife isn't one of the crazy ones who storms the OR. He nudged my arm lightly. "My Nora used to be in the OR. She knows better than to freak out. Thank God she isn't one of those crazy wives." Used to be. Crazy. The words hit like tiny needles. So casual, everyone laughed, even me. I forced a chuckle, though something tightened in my chest. "Hey," I joked weakly, tapping his shoe under the table. "I can still freak out if I want to." He patted my hand the way you'd pat a dog's head. "Not with that temperament, honey." The group laughed again. My cheeks heated, but I took another sip of coffee to hide it. The steam fogged my glasses for a second, giving me an unexpected little shield. Eventually, the group broke apart. Trays clattered, chairs scraped, and suddenly it was just the two of us again. The quiet between us felt different now, thick, like something unspoken hung in the air. His phone buzzed on the table, screen lighting up. "Vanessa. Need to talk, or Thursday's scenario." My stomach tightened. "What's that about?" I asked casually, nodding at the message. He flipped the phone face down. "Simulation stuff. You wouldn't get it." I blinked. "Liam, I worked mass casualty drills for years." He shrugged, dismissive. "This is different. New protocols. Don't worry about it." Worry. Right. That was becoming a pattern with him. Anything I questioned was me worrying, overthinking, or not understanding. "Is Vanessa the anesthesiologist you've been working late with?" I asked gently. His jaw tightened for half a second. Then he forced a smile. "She's good at her job. Don't start being one of those jealous, insecure wives. Okay? Those." There it was again. Another category he didn't want me to fall into. "I didn't say I was jealous," I murmured. "I just asked." He stood abruptly, gathering his tray. "I need to get back upstairs. Thanks for meeting me." He kissed the top of my head, quick, perfunctory, and walked away without looking back. His footsteps echoed down the hall, growing softer, until all I could hear was the hiss of the espresso machine and the buzz of fluorescent lights. That night, after dinner, I passed by Ellie's room and heard her whispering. I paused. "Daddy says Mommy isn't crazy," she told her stuffed unicorn. "So don't worry. You're not crazy either." The words made my breath catch. I stepped inside. "Hey, sweetheart, what are you talking about?" She looked up with innocent eyes. "Daddy said you're not crazy, so I was telling Sparkle she's not crazy too." I tucked her in, smoothing her blanket, keeping my face calm, even though something cold slid down my spine. "Good," I whispered. "No one here is crazy." But later, in the hallway, the question wouldn't leave me. Why was my sanity suddenly part of his vocabulary at all? Now I understand that was his first breadcrumb. planting an idea about me long before I realized he was telling a story I hadn't agreed to. The TV glowed faint blue across the living room, flickering against Liam's face as he lay stretched on the couch. His scrubs were half unzipped, a loose t-shirt underneath, and his phone rested on his chest like a sleepy pet. The room smelled faintly of the popcorn Ellie and I had made earlier, mixed with the sterile soap he always used after the OR. I was folding laundry on the coffee table when his phone buzzed. The vibration made the remote skitter an inch. I didn't mean to look, but the screen lit up facing me. Vanessa, tomorrow's perfect for the practice run. Will she pick up? The words hit me like cold water down the back. Practice run? She? My heart stuttered. What's that about? I asked, trying to sound casual. What practice run? Liam snatched the phone so fast it made a soft slap against his palm. Relax, he laughed, locking the screen. It's just scheduling for a mass casualty drill. You're adorable when you try to decode doctor speak. Adorable? Like I was a child. I've literally worked mass casualty drills, I said, folding a towel too sharply. Why would me answering the phone be part of that? He shrugged without looking at me, eyes back on the TV. You're taking everything too literally. It's not that deep. Not that deep. That was his favorite way to end a conversation he didn't want to have. He took a long sip of water, then switched the channel like the matter was settled. The sound of sitcom laughter filled the room, too bright, too loud. My stomach tightened, but I forced myself to finish folding. When I turned toward him again, he was already absorbed in the show, fingertips idly tapping the back of his phone. Every part of him looked relaxed, unbothered. Meanwhile, my heartbeat felt like it was stuck in my throat. When I went upstairs later, I could still hear the TV echoing faintly through the floorboards. I brushed my teeth while replaying the text in my mind. Make sure she answers. Why would anyone need to make sure I answered anything for a drill? Something didn't sit right. At all. The next morning, he was different. Softer. Too soft. He came up behind me in the kitchen while I was pouring Ellie's cereal and wrapped his arms around my waist. His chin brushed my shoulder, the warm smell of his aftershave mixing with the scent of milk and Cheerios. Long day today, he murmured. Special case. He hugged me longer than usual, too long like he was performing affection instead of feeling it. Then he crouched down to Ellie's level and said in a sing-song voice, "If anything happens to Daddy, you know Mommy will be calm, right?" Ellie giggled. I didn't. Something about his tone made my skin prickle, a weird mix of rehearsed and mocking. After he left, the house felt strangely hollow, like he'd taken all the air with him. I retreated to my home office, just a small room with a desk, my laptop, and the faint smell of old paper and printer ink. At lunch, I reached for my planner and opened our shared digital calendar out of habit. That's when I saw it. A 2-hour block. Or special. No case number, no patient initials, no team list. My stomach dropped. In the OR world, nothing legitimate gets labeled special without documentation. My old instincts roared awake, the same ones that used to keep patients alive and protocols tight. Something was off. Something was deeply wrong. By evening, that tension had settled into my legs, my shoulders, the back of my throat. He came home humming, almost cheerful, too cheerful. He kissed Ellie's forehead, kissed mine, then followed me upstairs as I changed into pajamas. "You keeping your phone loud tonight?" he asked lightly, leaning against the doorway. I froze halfway through pulling on a t-shirt. "Why would I need to?" He chuckled. "In case the hospital calls." Then he added, almost as an afterthought, "Don't go crazy if they do." Crazy again. I felt my jaw tighten. He turned off the light and slipped into bed, asleep within minutes. I lay awake longer, staring at the dim glow of my phone on the nightstand. His words kept repeating. Make sure she answers. Special. Don't go crazy. I finally drifted off with a rock in my stomach, sensing something coming toward me in the dark, something I couldn't yet name, but that my gut already recognized as a trap. The phone rang while I was finishing a chart review. My home office was quiet except for the soft clicking of my keyboard and the hum of the small desk fan I kept pointed at my ankles. I didn't think much of the vibration until I saw the caller ID, St. Matthew's Hospital. A cold ripple went down my spine. "Hello?" I answered quickly. A young woman's voice rushed out, sounding breathless. "Mrs. Hayes? Your husband, Dr. Hayes. He had a medical event in the OR. You need to come now." My heart dropped straight into my stomach. "What kind of event? Is he conscious? Can someone— I don't have details," she stammered. "They said to tell you to come immediately." Panic hit like a wave. I pushed back from my desk so fast half my papers slid to the floor. I didn't pick them up. I barely remembered locking the front door behind me. By the time I reached my car, my hands were shaking so badly that I fumbled the keys twice. The drive blurred past in flashes of red lights and silent prayers. My fingers gripped the steering wheel hard enough that my knuckles throbbed. I kept imagining worst-case scenarios: bleeding, collapse, brain aneurysm, things I had seen too often in OR life not to fear them. When the hospital came into view, I pulled in crooked, not caring. I ran through the sliding doors, breath catching, the smell of disinfectant hitting me sharp and familiar. My shoes echoed too loudly on the tile. The OR floor was colder than I remembered. The lights were harsher, buzzing faintly overhead. A nurse I didn't know met my eyes at the desk. "I'm here for my husband," I gasped. "Dr. Hayes. They said he collapsed?" Her expression softened. "They're stabilizing him, or 3, down the hall." Stabilizing. My legs moved before my brain did. Each step made my heart pound harder, echoing through my ribs like a drum. I was halfway there when someone caught my sleeve. "Nora!" The voice was a sharp whisper, urgent, familiar. I turned and saw Jasmine stepping out from a side alcove. Scrubs on, surgical cap loose around her shoulders, eyes wide with something that didn't look like concern. It looked like fear. "Jasmine!" My voice broke. "Where is he? What happened?" She didn't answer. Instead, she grabbed my elbow and pulled me behind a tall supply cart, out of the direct line of sight of OR 3. "Don't go in there," she whispered. "Nora, it's a trap." For a second, I truly thought I misheard her. A trap? My husband collapsing? My brain rejected the idea. "What are you talking about?" I demanded, breath unsteady. "They called me. They said—" "He didn't collapse," she said, shaking her head quickly. "There was no medical event. Liam and Dr. Clark told staff to say that." She glanced nervously toward OR 3. "They said you've been unstable at home, that you might run in screaming. They wanted security ready." My stomach twisted. "What? Why would why would they—" She squeezed my arm. "Just look." I followed her gaze to the small rectangular window of OR 3, and the world tilted. Liam sat on the edge of a gurney, wearing a hospital gown but completely alert, laughing. Actually laughing. No monitors attached. No urgency. Vanessa stood beside him, mask off, arms folded casually. A security guard leaned against the far wall, bored, like he was waiting for something to happen. My heart hammered so loudly I could barely hear, but then Liam's voice filtered through the crack of the door. "She'll run in here," he said, half smirking. "You've seen how emotional she can get. If she flips out, we'll have documentation for the custody eval." Custody. My breath caught. He kept talking. "Make sure the incident report uses uncontrolled. HR loves that word." Vanessa chuckled. "Don't worry, we'll take care of it." My mouth went dry. My fingers felt numb. I didn't realize I had pulled out my phone until Jasmine gently shifted her body, shielding me from view as I lifted the camera. "I thought it was weird," she whispered. "No code, no page, just call his wife and get ready. I can't be part of something like this." Through the phone screen, I watched the man I'd driven to save casually rehearse my supposed breakdown. "If she bursts in here crying," Liam said, swinging his feet like a teenager, "that's perfect. We just need witnesses." Witnesses. Like this was theater. I hit record. My hands trembled so much the phone almost slipped, but Jasmine steadied my wrist. "They'll twist anything you do," she murmured. "If you walk in there, they win." Liam adjusted his gown, completely relaxed. No sign of illness, no sign of collapse. Just a man plotting. A man I'd loved for years. A man who was ready to destroy me for custody leverage. The hallway felt colder suddenly. The antiseptic smell turned sharp, almost metallic. My chest tightened, but something else rose too. Clarity, cold, and unmistakable. This wasn't about an affair. This wasn't about a bad marriage. This was an ambush, crafted in the one room where truth is usually sacred. I ended the recording, locking my phone with a click that sounded impossibly loud in my ears. Jasmine looked at me, eyes filled with apology and something like resolve. "What do you want to do?" What I wanted. I wanted to scream. I wanted to collapse. I wanted to run. But instead, I straightened slowly, my breath shaky but steadying. "I'm not walking into his trap," I whispered, and for the first time in a long time, I meant every word. Jasmine's fingers tightened around my arm, her grip warm and trembling. "Please, Nora," she whispered, "don't go in there. He told staff you've been erratic at home, that he's worried about your mental state." She swallowed hard. "They're supposed to document any outbursts, any sign you're unstable." Unstable. There it was again, that same word he'd started sprinkling casually into conversations, like he was seasoning a dish he planned to serve later. For a moment, my body didn't know what to do. My heart lunged toward that OR door, desperate to rush in and demand answers, to scream, to cry, to ask how he could do this, how he could plan something so cruel. But my brain had finally caught up. If I ran in there, he'd get exactly what he wanted. A show, a scene, a weapon. I closed my eyes, inhaling antiseptic and fear, the air so cold it burned. I forced everything inside me, rage, heartbreak, humiliation, down into some heavy, shaking place in my chest. "I'm not giving him what he wants," I whispered. The words barely came out. My hand shook as I slid my phone into my pocket. The video felt like it weighed 100 pounds. Jasmine nodded, relief softening her face. Good. Just go. Please." My legs felt like they were moving through thick mud as I turned away from OR3. Each step pulled at me, slow and heavy, like the hallway itself was trying to drag me backward. The floor squeaked under my shoes, the sound unnervingly loud. I kept my eyes straight ahead, breath short and tight. When I reached the nurse's station, I stopped, gripping the counter to steady myself. "Hi," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Can I get a copy of any incident report filed about Dr. Hayes? About his collapse?" The clerk blinked at me, confused. She scrolled through her screen, tapping keys. "There's no incident report," she said. "Just a note that family was contacted per physician request." Physician request, not emergency. Not collapse. He had asked them to call me. My chest constricted. "Thank you," I managed, stepping back before she could ask more questions. I didn't go toward the main lobby. Couldn't. The thought of running into anyone, another nurse, a surgeon who worked with him, even a curious security guard, made my stomach churn. Instead, I slipped through the small side exit near the loading dock. The metal bar clicked under my palm, and the door swung open with a hiss of air. Bright sunlight hit me full in the face. It felt wrong. Too cheerful, too clean, too ordinary for the world I'd just walked out of. The cold outside air stung my eyes, and I wasn't sure if it was the wind or the tears I refused to let fall. In the parking lot, the pavement radiated heat through my shoes. I got into my car and shut the door, and for a moment the silence swallowed everything. No monitors, no footsteps, no humming lights. Just my own breathing, shaky and uneven. My hands trembled violently as I unlocked my phone. I pressed play. Liam's voice filled the car, muffled but unmistakable. "She'll run in here. You've seen how emotional she can get. Vanessa. Make sure the incident report uses the word uncontrolled. The security guard shifting, waiting, Liam laughing. Laughing. I covered my mouth with my hand as if that could stop the sound from reaching me. But it was too late. The words burrowed straight into my ribs, cracking something that had already been weakening for months. There was no medical emergency, no collapse, no crisis. Just a plan to destroy me. A professional stage, witnesses ready, a script written in advance. I lowered the phone slowly, pressing it against my thigh like I needed it to anchor me. My pulse thudded in my ears, loud and furious. I couldn't go home, not like this, not to him, but I also couldn't confront him, not without help, not when he was already laying the groundwork to paint me as unstable. I turned the key in the ignition. The engine rumbled alive, vibrating the steering wheel beneath my palms. I wiped my face with the back of my hand, inhaled deeply, and shifted the car into reverse. I didn't drive toward our townhouse. I drove across town, toward a quiet brick building with a gold-lettered sign on the door. Miller and Associates, Family and Estate Law, Aunt Diane's office. I parked in her lot, turned off the engine, and stared at the screen of my phone, the thumbnail of the video, the paused image of my husband perched on a gurney, healthy and smiling as he planned to break me. I tightened my grip. I wasn't walking into Liam's trap. I was walking into my lawyer's office with evidence he never expected me to have. Aunt Diane's office always smelled the same. Strong coffee, warm paper, and a faint trace of her perfume. Something woodsy and steady that made me feel like I could breathe again. When I stepped inside, she took one look at my face and didn't bother with small talk. She just closed the door behind me and gestured toward the chair across from her desk. "What happened?" she asked softly. My throat tightened. I didn't trust myself to speak yet, so I pulled out my phone and handed it to her. The screen was still on the thumbnail of Liam perched on that gurney, smiling like he was rehearsing for a play. Diane put on her glasses and pressed play. She watched the entire video without blinking. When it ended, she rewound it and watched again. Her jaw tightened on the second pass, a tiny muscle flickering near her ear, but her expression stayed controlled, calm in the way only lawyers and surgeons could manage under pressure. When the screen finally went dark, she set the phone gently between us. "Nora," she said, her voice low but steady, "what do you want to do now that you know who he really is?" Not. "What did you do to provoke this?" Not. "Are you sure you understood correctly?" Just, "What do you want?" The question cracked something open in me. Words poured out, faster than I expected, hotter than I intended. I told her about the routine forms he pushed under my hand, the ones with power of attorney language tucked between meaningless boxes, the text about the practice run, the fake emergency call from the clerk barely holding it together, Jasmine's warning in the hallway, the security guard waiting for a show, Liam's voice asking for the word uncontrolled in an incident report. Saying it out loud felt like peeling back my own skin, raw and exposed, but with each sentence, something heavy loosened in my chest. Diane listened without interrupting, fingers steepled under her chin. When I finished, she didn't rush to respond. She opened a drawer instead, one neat file at a time, until she found a tab labeled Hayes, Duplex, LLC. She slid it toward me. "You remember this?" she asked. I nodded, even though my memory felt foggy. "You helped me set it up after my godmother passed, before the wedding." "That's right." She flipped the folder open, pages crisp and familiar. "And as this clearly states, you are the sole owner. It's a separate business entity. The property, the rental income, the reserves, it's all yours. And any attempt to merge it into marital assets requires your explicit, recorded consent." She tapped the clause with her pen. "You never gave that." A slow warmth spread across my chest, shock mixed with relief, like discovering a lifeboat underneath you only after the ship starts sinking. "He doesn't know," I whispered. "He thinks I sold it." Diane nodded. And he never asked for proof, which is his mistake, not yours. A safety net, one I had forgotten I even had. She leaned back, businesslike now. Here's what we're going to do next. My breath caught, not from fear this time, but from a feeling I hadn't had in a long while. Direction. First, she said, we secure everything, every document, every form he pressured you into signing. We request copies. We pull timestamps. We preserve that video in 3 different places. I nodded. Second, you move your freelance income into a separate account he can't access. Quietly. No sudden flags. Another nod. Third, you ask Jasmine for a written statement. She won't want to get involved, but she will if you explain what's happening, and legally her first-hand account is gold. I swallowed hard, imagining the conversation. She'll tell the truth, I said. She already risked her job to warn me. Good. Diane made a note. Fourth, I'll request all hospital communication regarding Liam's supposed collapse. There won't be a real report, which works in our favor. She paused, studying me gently, and depending on how he behaves from here, we may consider a protective order, not because you're in physical danger necessarily, but because manipulation this calculated often escalates when it fails. A chill went through me. You think he'll get worse? I think, she said calmly, that men who rely on control don't give it up quietly. That's why you must remain calm. No yelling, no late-night texts, no reactions he can twist. Let him be the dramatic one. Calm, boring, documented. I exhaled slowly. I can do that. Diane gathered photocopies into a neat folder and slid it across the desk to me. You're not trapped, Nora. You have leverage, evidence, and assets he doesn't even know exist. He pulled you into a battlefield he thought he owned. She offered a small, fierce smile. But you're not walking in blind anymore. I stood, gripping the folder, feeling its weight. Not heavy like fear, heavy like preparation. Outside, the late afternoon sun warmed my face through the lobby windows. My hands still trembled, but not from panic this time, from momentum. As I walked to my car, a single thought buzzed under everything. He thinks I'm cornered. He has no idea I just opened my escape route. I was folding sweaters into a cardboard box when my phone buzzed on the bed beside me. The room smelled faintly of laundry detergent and the dusty cardboard I'd pulled from the garage, my just-in-case boxes. I wasn't packing to flee, not yet, but I was separating things, quietly, carefully, preparing. The preview of the text froze me. Heard you had some kind of breakdown at the hospital. Are you okay? A breakdown? My pulse thudded once, hard. I opened the message fully. It was from a mutual friend, someone who knew both me and Liam well enough to sound genuinely concerned. Liam said you ran toward an OR screaming and they had to calm you down. I'm worried about you. My vision blurred for a moment, a hot rush of disbelief and fury flushing through me. I sat on the edge of the bed, the mattress dipping under my weight. None of that had happened, not 1 second of it. I hadn't screamed. I hadn't run. I hadn't even crossed the damn threshold of OR 3. I stared at the text, thumb hovering, heart pounding in my throat. This was it, proof. Not of his plan, but of the aftermath, the lie already growing legs, running ahead of me. My hands shook as I typed, "None of that is true. I never even went inside the OR." A long pause. Dots appeared, disappeared, reappeared. Oh. Wow, that's not what he said. No, of course it wasn't. 2 days. That's all it took for Liam to start rewriting reality. He came home that evening humming under his breath, setting his keys in the bowl by the door with an exaggerated sigh. The smell of antiseptic soap followed him, sharp and clean, like he'd scrubbed himself of guilt on his way out. "Hey," he said softly, stepping into the kitchen where I was chopping vegetables for dinner. "How are you holding up after everything? That scare really shook you, huh?" I gripped the knife tighter. "What scare?" He shrugged, leaning against the counter with practiced tenderness. "The hospital calling you, me collapsing, you getting emotional. Totally understandable. He raised his voice slightly as Ellie wandered in. Mommy just got a little overwhelmed, but Daddy's fine now. Ellie looked up at me with wide eyes. Mommy, were you scared? My throat tightened. No, sweetie, I was just worried about Daddy. But Liam wasn't done. It's okay to get overwhelmed, he told her, brushing her hair back. Mommy feels things very strongly. A seed planted, a story watered. After Ellie went upstairs, I finally asked, why are people saying I had a breakdown at the hospital? He blinked at me, all innocence. I don't know. I told a couple people you were understandably emotional. Maybe they exaggerated. People talk. You told someone I ran screaming toward an OR. His jaw shifted, almost imperceptible. If you weren't so sensitive, no one would say that, he said lightly, turning away to grab a glass of water. There it was, the twist, the blame, handed back to me like a gift-wrapped accusation. I steadied my breath. Liam, that didn't happen. He sighed, the martyrdom thick in his voice. Look, maybe you should talk to someone about stress. It might help to have documentation of how you're coping. Documentation. The word froze the room. He said it casually, like he was offering a helpful suggestion. But I heard the subtext clearly now. Paper trails, mental health notes, instability, ammo. He was already picturing the file, already imagining the judge reading it. I didn't bite, I didn't snap, I didn't argue. I just nodded slowly and made my face into calm stone. Later that night, once he fell asleep on the couch from stress, I slipped into my home office and texted Jasmine. Did anyone report that I acted out? Her response came fast. No, you never even came inside OR 3. No one saw you upset. There's no report. Only Liam said anything. I closed my eyes. My fingertips tingled. I forwarded the screenshots and the friend's message to Diane. A few moments later, she replied, He's accelerating. Stay quiet, stay strategic. He thinks he's already won. Let him keep thinking that. I sat back in my chair, staring at the dark window, my own reflection faint in the glass, tired but sharper than before. He believed I'd stepped straight into his story. He believed the trap had sprung exactly as planned. He believed I was flailing, but he didn't know what I had recorded. He didn't know what Jasmine saw. He didn't know his plan had failed the moment I didn't walk through that door. Today, I know that his lies didn't scare me. They clarified the battlefield, and he wasn't the only one writing the story anymore. The conference room felt colder than the rest of the hospital. Sterile air, fluorescent lights humming overhead, a faint smell of burnt coffee sitting in the corner carafe. I sat at the long table with my folder neatly closed in front of me, my hands flat against the wood to keep them from trembling. Jasmine sat just behind my right shoulder, steady and quiet. Diane's voice was already connected through speakerphone, crisp and controlled. The door opened. Liam walked in with that familiar blend of confidence and irritation, like someone had interrupted his important life. Vanessa followed, stiff as a mannequin, her perfume sharp and floral enough to sting. When Liam saw me sitting there, not flustered or frantic but prepared, his face faltered for half a second, just half. Then he masked it with a tight smile. Didn't realize this was going to be a whole thing, he said, taking a seat across from me. His knee bounced once, quickly. Mr. Klein from HR Risk Management adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat. Thank you for coming. We're here to address a formal concern brought forward regarding an OR incident that may have involved a staged medical event. Liam leaned forward immediately, hands splayed like he wanted the floor. Before this gets blown out of proportion, I need to clarify. My wife has been showing signs of paranoia at home. She nearly disrupted an active OR a few days ago, and I only asked staff to be prepared in case she endangered patient safety. Vanessa nodded along, chin lifted as if she were confirming a diagnosis. I didn't look at either of them. My eyes stayed on Mr. Klein, who was listening with polite neutrality, pen still capped in his hand. Liam continued, voice growing smoother as he warmed to his own story. "She's been emotional, erratic. I was concerned. All I did was take precautions. My only priority is patient safety." I almost laughed. The performance would have been impressive if I hadn't seen the rehearsal through a window. When he finally paused, Mr. Klein turned to me. "Mrs. Hayes, do you have anything you'd like to add?" "Yes," I said calmly. "Two things." My voice didn't shake. Not once. First, I never entered OR3. Not physically, not even close. I didn't disrupt anything. I waited a beat. Second, I have video from the hallway showing my husband completely conscious and describing how to bait me into appearing uncontrolled for a custody evaluation. A silence fell over the room like a dropped curtain. I reached into my bag, pulled out a small silver USB drive, and slid it across the table. "It's all there." Mr. Klein nodded once to the IT tech waiting by the wall. He inserted the drive into the laptop connected to the large screen. Then my world, the truth, filled the room. Liam's voice echoed from the speakers. "She'll run in here, and you guys saw how emotional she can get. If she flips out in the OR, we'll have documentation for the custody eval." The pause. Vanessa's smirk. Her voice. "We'll take care of you, don't worry." Frame by frame, the footage displayed Liam swinging his legs on the gurney, no monitors attached, no distress anywhere in his body language. The security guard leaning on the wall, bored, waiting for a show that never came. When the clip ended, Vanessa sputtered immediately. That was dark humor, taken out of context. We were just joking." "No one in that room was joking," Jasmine said softly from behind me. Her voice trembled, but her resolve didn't. "There was no emergency. We were told to call Nora down for a private situation, and I felt wrong about it. That's why I warned her." Mr. Klein turned to Vanessa. "Dr. Clark, I need you to step outside for a moment." She froze, then stood stiffly and left. When the door clicked shut, he faced Liam. "Dr. Hayes," he said, voice tightening, "staging a false medical event, misusing OR staff, and attempting to manipulate hospital processes for personal legal matters are serious ethics violations. This will go to formal investigation. Expect a privilege review and administrative suspension pending outcome." Liam's face drained of color, his mouth opening then closing like he couldn't find a single word to anchor himself. He looked at me as if I had betrayed him, as if I had rewritten the script, ruining the ending he'd planned. I met his eyes without blinking. "I used to work in the OR," I said quietly. "I know how hard everyone works to keep patients safe. Watching you turn that room into a weapon, it broke something in me." His jaw twitched. He looked at Mr. Klein again, but this time there was no confidence, only panic trying to hide behind anger. The meeting ended with formality, paperwork, and the rustle of chairs scraping against the floor. Liam left first, under the weight of the words, "administrative review," shoulders tight, steps sharp. I stood slowly, gathering my folder. Jasmine placed a soft hand on my arm. "You okay?" "Yes," I said, and for once it felt true. As we stepped out of the room, Mr. Klein handed me his card. "If anything else happens," he said, "contact me directly." His tone wasn't sympathetic. It was resolute. The hospital, the stage Liam believed he controlled, had seen the truth, and the narrative he tried to write about me had just collapsed under the weight of his own words. Dinner felt like sitting inside a storm cloud that hadn't decided where to strike yet. The three of us were at the table, the overhead light buzzing softly, the spaghetti cooling on our plates. Ellie pushed noodles around with her fork, humming under her breath, trying to pretend she didn't notice the tension crawling across the table like static. Liam didn't eat. He just stared at me, hard, unblinking. The kind of look meant to intimidate, to warn, to remind me who he thought held control. "Why?" he finally said, voice low and bitter. "Did you have to drag the hospital into our private matters?" My fork paused mid-air. His tone was the kind that hid a threat under each syllable. Staging a medical emergency and coaching staff to build a custody case isn't private, I said quietly. It's unethical and dangerous." Ellie's eyes flicked up at us, nervous. He scoffed loudly, leaning back like I'd insulted him personally. Unbelievable. I was trying to protect my patients. You could have come charging into an active OR. I did what I had to do. "You didn't collapse," I said. "You weren't even hooked up to a monitor. You weren't protecting anyone." The vein in his jaw twitched. "You're so ungrateful, Nora. After everything I do for this family." I didn't rise to it. I kept my voice steady because Diane had warned me. Stay calm, stay boring, stay documented. "I'm not discussing any of this without legal counsel," I said. "If you want to talk, Diane needs to be present." That was the spark. His fist slammed onto the table so hard the plates jumped and the water glasses trembled. Ellie flinched violently, her fork clattering onto the floor. "See?" he barked, pointing at me like a prosecutor to a guilty witness. "This is what I mean. She's cold. She doesn't care about this family. She'd rather talk to lawyers than her own husband." Ellie's lip wobbled, her small shoulders curling inward. "Mommy, Daddy, are we getting a divorce?" Liam turned to me with a sharp, accusing look. "See what you caused?" Then leaned dramatically toward her. "Daddy's trying to fix it," he said in a soft, pitying voice, "but Mommy wants lawyers instead." His words hit me harder than the fist on the table. "Liam," I said quietly, "don't do that." "Don't do what?" he shot back. "Tell the truth?" Ellie started crying, covering her face with both hands. I moved to her immediately, my chair scraping softly against the wood floor. I wrapped my arms around her, feeling her shaking breaths against my chest. "Sweetheart," I whispered, smoothing her hair, "grown-ups are figuring out some big things, but none of it is your fault. You're safe. We love you. Both of us." Liam watched us with a tight expression, some mix of anger and humiliation, and said nothing. When Ellie finally calmed down enough to eat a few more bites, he stood abruptly, muttering something about a long day, and disappeared into the living room. By the time I tucked Ellie into bed, her lashes were still wet. "Are you and Daddy mad at each other?" she asked. "We're making decisions to keep everyone safe," I said gently, "including you." After she fell asleep, I went straight to my home office and locked the door. The quiet in that room felt like a lifeline. I turned on the small desk lamp, its warm glow landing on the documents Diane had prepared. Instructions for separating finances, a checklist of digital accounts to secure, notes for gathering evidence. I opened my laptop, new bank account, created, billing deposits, redirected, passwords, updated, shared cloud folders, removed, draft divorce petition, ready. Each click felt like a tether snapping. In the living room, I heard the TV turn on, Liam settling onto the couch, sighing dramatically, shifting into the familiar posture of a man who believed he had been wronged. He'd sleep there, like he was the victim of my coldness, like he hadn't spent days coaching an ambush. My phone buzzed once, a text from Diane. "Do you want to proceed?" I looked toward the door, toward the house where everything had cracked open, toward the life he thought he could script for me. Then I typed back, "I'm ready. File it." I was sipping cold coffee at the kitchen table when the text came through, vibrating against the wood like it was angry. "Liam, you're making the biggest mistake of your life." That was it. No greeting, no explanation, just rage squeezed into a sentence. Diane had messaged me 10 minutes earlier. "Service complete. He got the papers in the parking lot." I pictured it without trying. The bright hospital lot, Liam stepping out after a shift he didn't finish in an OR, a process server holding a manila envelope. "Are you Dr. Hayes?" "Yes." "You've been served." His colleagues nearby pretending not to listen, his face tightening. The humiliation he would immediately blame on me. I reached for my key ring on the table, letting the metal click softly. My fingers brushed the longer, older duplex key. For the first time, I felt the weight of what that meant, something in my life that is mine. Diane's divorce petition was clinical and devastating. Emotional abuse, manipulation of medical processes, marital misconduct. The OR video cited by timestamp. The hospital's investigation noted as pending. A factual takedown of the man who thought he controlled every narrative. My phone buzzed again and again. A stream of messages appeared one after another. How dare you ambush me at work? You couldn't talk to me first like an adult. This paranoia is destroying our family. No judge will believe your story. Answer me. The tone flipped constantly. Threats, guilt, pity, venom, like he was throwing emotional darts, hoping one would hit. I didn't respond. I forwarded everything to Diane with a single line. How do we reply? She sent me a short email to approve, then fired it off to his attorney. All communication must go through counsel. Direct messages between the parties will concern only co-parenting logistics and must be in writing. Any further harassment may be included as evidence. Within minutes, his text stopped. Not because he calmed down, because he realized someone else was watching now. The quiet that followed felt like oxygen. Ellie noticed the difference first. "Mommy," she said that evening, coloring at the dining table while I cooked pasta, "why does Daddy sound mad all the time?" Her small voice made the room feel too still. The pot simmered, steam rising in thin ribbons. I knelt beside her. "Daddy and Mommy are making big decisions," I said gently. "We're going to live in 2 homes instead of 1, but we both love you. That doesn't change." She studied my face for a long moment, serious and searching. "You don't look scared when Daddy talks anymore." The honesty hit me like a soft blow. I kissed her forehead. "That's because things are going to get better." She nodded, accepting it with the resilience only children have. Liam's parents called after dinner, their voices already sharpened. "What are you doing to our son?" his mother demanded. "Divorce? Hospital complaints? You're ruining his career." I moved to the quiet hallway, leaning against the wall. "He staged a fake medical emergency to frame me," I said evenly. "I didn't ruin anything." "He did." His father cut in, voice booming through the phone. "You don't take family issues to an employer." "He made it an employer issue when he used hospital staff in his scheme," I replied. I told the truth. Silence. The first time I'd ever spoken back to them like that. "Well," his mother finally snapped, "we hope you're happy." "I'm getting safer," I said simply, and hung up. Later that night, as I uploaded documents to a secure folder, an email notification appeared. From Mr. Klein, risk management subject, status update, Dr. Liam Hayes. I opened it. The hospital had suspended Liam pending investigation, or privileges revoked, administrative duties only, immediate cooperation required. It wasn't revenge, it wasn't karma. It was the consequence of his own choices finally catching up to him. I closed the laptop softly and looked at the duplex key again. Cool metal, small but solid. For the first time in a long time, I felt solid too. The conference room felt deliberately bland. Beige walls, soft lighting, a bowl of pens no one touched. Even the air smelled neutral, like someone had tried to erase any trace of emotion from it. But the moment Diane said the words, "Nora's separate rental property," the room snapped awake. Liam's head whipped toward me so fast his chair squeaked against the carpet. "What rental property?" he demanded, voice sharp, like he already knew he wouldn't like the answer. I kept my hands folded in my lap, fingers laced tight enough that my knuckles ached. Across from us, the mediator, a calm man with wire-rimmed glasses, paused mid-note and looked up. Liam's lawyer cleared her throat, too loud in the quiet room. We sat at a wide oval table, papers neatly arranged, coffee cooling untouched, the kind of staged politeness that only exists in rooms built for conflict. Liam's attorney launched into her argument again, as if she hadn't been interrupted. As we've already stated, Dr. Hayes' higher earning capacity and current career interruption mean a 50-50 division of all assets is appropriate. He has contributed significantly to the marital lifestyle. Diane lifted a hand, the smallest gesture, but somehow the whole table fell silent. Our position remains the same. she said, her voice calm enough to cut through steel. Joint assets minus the funds Liam dissipated on personal lifestyle choices and private legal consultations. Nora's freelance income is modest but verifiable, and the duplex, she tapped a folder with one manicured finger, is non-marital property held in an LLC established before the wedding. Liam's face changed color. First confusion, then disbelief, then a simmering red crawling up his neck. "You told me you sold that," he snapped. I met his eyes evenly. "I told you I took care of it, and I did." His jaw twitched. For years he'd spoken to me like I was a child who needed guidance. But now he was realizing I hadn't just been listening. I'd been building something he knew nothing about. Diane slid the LLC paperwork across the table like a seasoned card player placing down a winning hand. "Date of creation," she said. "Funding source, Nora's godmother. And, as the documents clearly state, explicit clauses preventing the asset from becoming marital property without Nora's signed, recorded consent." Liam's lawyer scanned the paperwork, her expression tightening as she turned each page. "And there's no such consent," Diane added pleasantly, "because Nora never gave it." Liam's lawyer exhaled slowly, already recognizing the dead end. "We'll review the documents," she murmured, but her tone admitted defeat. They both knew there was nothing to challenge. Liam leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, anger rolling off him in waves. "So you hid assets?" "No," Diane said before I could respond. "We disclosed the duplex before the marriage. You were advised to retain independent counsel at the time." Her eyes sharpened. "You chose not to." "That's ridiculous," Liam said, turning to me. "You kept this from me on purpose." I felt the old instinct to shrink, to apologize, to smooth things out. But I didn't. I sat still. "You assumed it was part of our marital finances," I said softly. "I never said that. You just never asked questions you didn't want the answers to." The mediator cleared his throat gently, trying to pull the conversation back from the edge. "Dr. Hayes," he said, "given the ongoing hospital investigation, the evidence submitted, and the financial documentation presented today, it may be in your best interest to negotiate reasonably moving forward." It was the softest possible version of "you have no leverage here." Liam shot him a glare, but the mediator didn't flinch. Diane simply folded her hands like a teacher waiting for a disruptive student to settle. Liam finally looked back at me. Really looked. The anger was still there, but beneath it, something sharper flickered. Realization. His trap had become his cage. I didn't smirk. I didn't gloat. I just held his gaze long enough for him to understand. I wasn't the woman he thought he could corner anymore. It was a Tuesday, around noon, the kind of cool, bright day where the sunlight makes everything look a little too honest. I was walking downtown between a client meeting and the parking garage, juggling my laptop bag and a to-go salad, when I passed the big corner coffee shop with the floor-to-ceiling windows. And there he was. Liam sat at a small table near the glass, in street clothes, not scrubs. No hospital badge around his neck, no white coat draped over the back of his chair. Just jeans, a wrinkled button-down, and a phone pressed to his ear. His face was tight, his free hand cutting through the air as he talked. Even through the glass, I could read the tension in his posture. His coffee sat untouched, a ring of condensation forming at the base of the cup. I only heard one word clearly as I walked past: privileges. Mouthed with that familiar mix of outrage and disbelief. His lips shaped other phrases I knew too well: review board, unfair, see politics. This was the man who used to stride through OR halls like he owned the floor, like every beeping monitor sang his praises. Now he looked small, contained in a cafe window instead of an operating room. I kept walking. I didn't slow down, but my heart didn't speed up either. By then, the hospital's investigation had finished. The formal language in the letter was almost dry enough to be funny. Misuse of hospital resources, staging a false emergency event, inappropriate involvement of staff for personal legal matters, attempt to manipulate internal processes. The conclusion: serious ethical breaches. Result: leadership position removed, or privileges indefinitely suspended, subject to review that everyone knew would never really come. He didn't get fired, not technically, not then. They moved him to administrative duties, a kind of professional purgatory. No trauma surgeries, no hero moments, just paperwork and meetings and physicians who no longer looked at him quite the same. Word spread. It always does in medicine. First, I heard little pieces from Jasmine over coffee, the way nurses talk when they're off the clock. Then from an old anesthesiologist friend who texted, "Your ex is radioactive. Nobody wants to touch that ethics cloud." Other hospitals might have overlooked an affair or a messy divorce. Not this. Vanessa's transfer notice went out quietly a few weeks after the investigation ended. She headed to another state, another hospital where people didn't know about staged emergencies and smirks caught on camera. Her texts to Liam slowed, then stopped. Loyalty has a way of evaporating when it stops being useful. Court came next. The courtroom smelled like old wood, stale air, and cheap coffee from the machine in the hallway. I sat at one table with Diane. He sat at the other with his attorney, in a suit that suddenly didn't carry the same authority it used to. The judge reviewed everything. Not the stories, not the emotions. Those were background noise. She focused on the OR video, on Jasmine's statement, on the hospital reports, on his text messages, which read very differently when printed in black and white instead of flashing on a screen at midnight. She listened to his lawyer describe me as overly emotional and unstable, then listened to Jasmine calmly confirm I had never stepped into OR3. She noted the discrepancy out loud. In the end, her ruling was firm but not dramatic. Primary physical custody to me, with Liam receiving scheduled visitation. No overnights missed, no contact denied, just structure, and a warning delivered in the same even tone she'd used all morning. Any attempts to manipulate the child emotionally or to undermine the other parent will be taken very seriously by this court. Financially, it was almost as clinical. She considered his reduced income post-suspension, my role as primary caregiver, the way he'd burned through joint funds on image and legal fees. The final decree gave me the bulk of what remained to balance out the damage and stabilize Ellie's life. The duplex stayed mine outright. So did my freelance business. On the record, as clearly as ink on paper. Liam was ordered to pay child support based on his new lower income. He tried to argue then, too, about money, about fairness, about the opportunities I'd cost him, but the numbers didn't care about his outrage. After the judgment, he ranted to anyone who would listen, friends, colleagues, his parents. According to him, I'd ruined his career, took him to the cleaners, lied to the hospital, turned everyone against him. It was almost impressive the way he managed to be the victim in every version of the story he told. People who knew the full story usually just changed the subject. Through my old OR contacts, I heard updates in bits and pieces. He was doing minor clinic work now, some consulting, no OR time, no trauma cases, no rushing through double doors like the star of his own show. He still blamed politics, cancel culture, vindictive exes, everyone but himself. One afternoon, a few months after the decree was final, Ellie came home from one of her visits with him. She kicked off her shoes at the door, shrugged off her backpack, and walked into the kitchen where I was rinsing strawberries. "Daddy said something," she announced, serious. "What did he say?" I asked, drying my hands with a dish towel. She climbed onto a stool, swinging her legs. "He said grown-ups get consequences when they break rules." I turned that over slowly, tasting the word consequences like something foreign in his mouth. "Do you think that's true?" I asked her. She nodded. "My teacher says that too." I smiled, meeting her eyes. "Then I think your teacher and Daddy are both right," I said. Inside, a quieter thought followed. One I didn't say out loud. Even if he didn't fully believe it yet, life was teaching him the part he refused to learn from me. The first time I walked back into a hospital after everything, my legs felt stiff, like they were remembering the last sprint I'd taken through hallways just like these. But this time, there was no panic call, no fake emergency, no trap behind an operating room door. This time, I was being paid. A coordinator with a clipboard met me in the lobby, her shoes squeaking softly on the polished floor. "Conference room B, Ms. Hayes," she said, smiling like she already expected the session to go well. "Staff from OR and compliance are attending." Ms. Hayes. Not just Nora, not Liam's wife, just me. As we walked, the familiar smell hit me. Sanitizer, warm linen from the laundry chute, hints of burnt espresso from the cafe near radiology. I waited for the old anxiety to rise, but instead, something steadier settled in. I set up my laptop at the front of the room. Nurses filtered in, scribbling on notepads, doctors slumped into chairs with coffees, administrators whispering about audits. When I introduced myself and started explaining documentation safety and red flag behaviors, people actually listened. And when I mentioned, lightly, professionally, the importance of ethical boundaries in high-stress environments, a few heads nodded with a recognition that made my stomach warm in a way I didn't expect. I left that seminar with a check, a thank you email already waiting in my inbox, and a sense that maybe, finally, I wasn't defined by the worst thing that happened in those halls. Word spread faster than I could have imagined. It turned out hospitals liked having someone who understood both the clinical side and the coding side, and who had personally witnessed how easily systems could be twisted. Malpractice insurers reached out next, asking me to train staff on spotting manipulation patterns before they became scandals. Soon, my tiny home office, wedged between the laundry closet and Ellie's art supplies, started overflowing with contracts, binders, sticky notes, and one too many coffee mugs. I relocated to a small rented office downtown, the kind with exposed brick and tall windows that made the afternoons feel softer. The sign on the door read, "Hayes Clinical Documentation Consulting, Nora Hayes, RN CCDS, only my name, only my work, no shadows trailing behind me." The duplex, my godmother's legacy, my quiet safety net, became something I finally allowed myself to take pride in. I hired a handyman to fix the porch rails, repainted the upstairs unit a soft gray, replaced the old laminate floors with something warmer. The tenants were happy to renew their leases even with a slight rent increase, and for the first time, the building felt like an asset, not a secret I carried around like guilt. I checked the mailbox there one afternoon and realized I wasn't holding my breath. I wasn't afraid someone would accuse me of hiding something that wasn't hidden. It was mine, fully, legally, calmly mine. At home, life softened in ways I didn't even realize we needed. Ellie no longer froze when she heard footsteps at the front door. She laughed more, loudly, freely. We started small traditions that stitched the weeks together. Pancake Saturdays, where she insisted on adding too many chocolate chips, library Fridays where she carried 3 books and insisted she could handle 4, and therapy Thursdays where she talked to someone neutral about big feelings she shouldn't have had to carry at all. She still saw Liam on scheduled days. She always came back a little quieter at first, but she didn't cling, and she didn't look over her shoulder when my phone buzzed anymore. That alone felt like healing. Jasmine and I found our way back to friendship too. Sometimes we met for coffee near her hospital. We'd lean over paper cups, whisper laughing about old OR jokes, new protocols, and how people in medicine often confuse confidence with integrity. She told me more than once, "I'm glad I didn't stay quiet that day." I told her she'd save me in more ways than one. We never talked about Vanessa or Liam for long. They were chapters we'd both already closed. One evening, after Ellie had fallen asleep surrounded by stuffed animals, I sat at my downtown desk, the city glowing through the window. A new contract lay open on the screen, a multi-month consulting role, more money than I ever earned in the OR. My pen hovered above the signature line. The room hummed softly. The buzz of my laptop, the faint echo of footsteps in the hallway, the hum of the street lamp outside. None of it felt threatening. I realized, sitting there with the contract and the quiet, that I wasn't bracing for the next crisis. I wasn't shrinking, tensing, waiting for someone else's decisions to blow up my life. I was choosing my next step, my next job, my next version of myself. For the first time in years, I wasn't navigating traps. I was building a stage. I used to think running toward danger made me strong. That sprint down the hospital hallway, heart pounding, breath shaking, felt like devotion, like proof I still belonged in the world Liam ruled. But now, sitting here tonight, I see it for what it was, a trap I almost stepped into. I'm in the duplex upstairs unit, the place I come to when I need quiet more than company. Ellie is at a sleepover, giggling her way through popcorn and cartoons somewhere down the street. The silence here is gentle. The only beeping in the room is the soft, rhythmic chime of my laptop as emails come in. Nothing urgent, nothing life or death. I wrap my hands around a warm mug of tea, feeling the smooth ceramic under my palms. The kitchen smells faintly of lemon dish soap and the vanilla candle I lit an hour ago. Outside, a streetlight casts a pale glow across the table, just enough to silhouette the folders spread out beside me, hospital contracts, training schedules, a consultation request waiting for my signature, my life laid out neatly, my work fully my own. And then, like a gust of cold air sneaking under the door, a memory flickers. The whisper, "Hide, it's a trap." Jasmine's hand on my arm, the bright Aurora light spilling through the window in the door. Liam sitting there, not dying, not collapsing, just waiting for me to lose control. I came so close to giving him exactly what he needed. One scream, one outburst, one frantic step into the OR, and his whole narrative would have written itself. He would have had witnesses, documentation, security reports, all perfectly arranged like a script. All he needed was me breaking. But I didn't break. Or maybe I did, but not in front of him, not on his stage. Tonight, in the quiet hum of my own space, I finally understand the part that saved me wasn't composure. It wasn't strength. It wasn't even the recording on my phone. It was choice. Choosing when to react. Choosing where. Choosing who got to witness it and who didn't. That was the moment I stopped being the woman he expected me to be. Somewhere out there, Liam is still telling versions of our story. I've heard pieces, the hospital politics, the jealous colleagues, the misunderstandings. He offers half-truths to anyone patient enough to listen, but his voice doesn't echo in my home anymore. His explanations aren't my responsibility. His consequences aren't my burden. I don't follow his life now. I don't check the hospital gossip. But every so often, someone mentions he's in clinics, doing consults, mumbling something about temporary restrictions. And I nod, polite and detached, because it's not my problem. My story isn't about him failing. It's about me rebuilding. I think back to the years he joked that I was just a nurse, like the OR doors closed for everyone but him. Now hospitals call me when they need clarity and truth, and someone who isn't afraid to say, "This is a problem." I know where systems break because I lived inside those cracks for years. I know the shadows abusers hide behind because I used to be married to one, and now I shine lights where they least expect them. I close my laptop, the hinge clicking softly in the stillness. When I stand, the chair legs scrape gently across the floor, a quiet reminder that this home responds only to me. Not to raised voices, not to slammed fists, not to accusations hurled like darts. As I reach for the light switch, a final image flashes through my mind. The tiny rectangle window on the OR door, my reflection in it, my hand gripping my phone, my feet turning away instead of rushing in. I didn't know it then, but that was the first step out of the life he tried to write for me. Tonight, I understand it fully. That was the moment I stopped letting him author my story and started writing my own discharge summary, one step, one boundary, one choice at a time.